Good evening, everyone. Today's topic is Introduction to C Programming Language. Everybody knows about programming languages. Everybody heard about what is a programming language, what is a program, how to write program. It is tough or it is easy. So let's begin with a session of C language. So, first of all, we will be talking about Introduction to C. C is a procedural language. Who developed C? And what are the later languages after C? What are the basics of C? What is the program structure? How to make this program? How basically behind this program is implemented? How it is executed through memory? Or how a computer basically compiles the program. And in later chapters we will having the concepts of variables and decision making nodes, the looping part, the iteration part, the different statements used for reading from the screen and printing to the screen. So let's begin with the session. First of all, we should know about what is C. So C is a structured programming language and it is not object oriented programming language. Yeah. So it's a procedural, it's a structured programming language. It is considered a high language because it allows the programmer to concentrate on the problem at hand, and basically you solve the problem using writing a program. In simple terms, you want to perform any operation, like suppose I want to add two numbers. I may be writing a program in which I will be taking some variables which is going to add the two numbers and showing, and it is going to print on the screen. So how we write programs? What are programming languages? The C is basically a important language. Obviously it is a case sensitive language that we are going to use, right? In later on lectures we will be learning what is case sensitive, what I am talking about, what is a program. So let us start with this. Let's give you a brief introduction to C. C is created in 1972 to write operating system, Unix in particular, basically Unix operating system that was written by this. And it is the Dennis Ritchie who developed this language at Bell Labs. It can be portable to other hardware, right? Because in some like we are going to use nowadays, everybody is using R programming language or Python. We are going to use later, like after C we have C++, and after that we have Java, because they are object oriented programming language, whereas but the base of the programming language is C. Like you may start with any programming language, but if you don't have the concepts, if you don't know the basics of any programming language, you are not going to proceed, right? So first we have to have a basics of this, right? Suppose for example I'm giving you why we go through the classes first to fifth. We learn about ABCD and then we move to something like today I'm pursuing PhD. So I have to first I did my first class, second class, and today I'm here. So this is like that only. We have earlier, we before C also there are other languages like Fortran, Lips, there are Prolong, there are other languages. But C you may say we have to understand, and it is easy also because it gives you a brief, a basics of variables, the data types, the information about keywords. So everybody should know about this. And we will be like in later chapters, we will be learning about what are the keywords, what are the data types, what are the variables in any programming language. Because if I'm going to start with Python or in any other language, you should know, you should have the, why we say you should know the basics of the any programming language. So we have to do C. That's why C is important. This is the importance of C. If I am directly jumping to do the PhD, a student, 10 years child cannot do PhD. Why? Because it has to grow by age also and by mind also. That's why first of all we should understand the basics of any programming language before moving into the higher, or you may say object oriented programming languages, right? So we should know the basics. Let's continue with the next part. Like after C, we have later languages. We should know about this. What is the basics of, like, what is the base? We have started with C, and C was developed by Dennis Ritchie. Again, C++ came into the picture in 1979, and it was developed by Bjarne Stroup at Bell Labs. And of course, it is a object-oriented programming language. In later chapters, I will be telling you about what is the difference between structured programming language or procedural language and object-oriented programming language, right? And again, the next is Java, right? 1991, Java was developed by Sun Microsystems. And partially, basically, the bytecode can run on virtual machines. It is a code, it can be run on different compilers because the bytecode is that type of code which can be run. So these are some advantages of Java. And we can write it in a single system, and we can run anywhere. So this is another example of this. And we have a memory manager, that is garbage collection, because everything, a system is maintained, a system is developed which uses some hardware, and memory is there. So basically Java focuses on memory manager, the garbage collector. So many JVMs, what is JVM? Java virtual machines, are written in C and C++. So I told you, rather than jumping into the higher languages, we should know the basics. If we don't know the basics, we cannot write a piece of code. We cannot write a single program if we don't know what is a data type. If we don't know what is a simple thing, like if I'm going to ask you a simple data, what is a variable? You cannot tell me a variable also. So by understanding the basics of any programming language, we can use those concepts with higher languages also, like object oriented languages also, right? So let us move to the next part. Whenever we have any program, whenever we write any program, first of all, we need to understand what is a program. So suppose I am giving one example. Program is a sequence of instructions. Program is a sequence of steps that is used to perform a specific task. For example, I want to add two numbers, right? So my task is to add two numbers. I have to write one program that has sequence of steps, like I will be taking one variable, I will be taking the input of another variable, I will be taking the value of another variable, and then the third variable is going to have the sum of that, the total of that, and then I'm going to print that variable to the screen. So these are the number of steps that are basically going to execute it to perform this task, right? So how to write, what is the structure of C program? Let's start with this. The first is we define the preprocessor directives. What is preprocessor directive? In any programming language, we have packages, we have libraries that is to be imported. Why? Because some keywords, like suppose I am talking about your school library. All the students are going to the school, right? And they have some library. You have some sections also, right? Suppose you have one section of English, and it contains the English Elmira contains all the English book. Again, some other library, like other Elmira, that is Hindi. Hindi Elmira will be containing Hindi books. So here also, in program, in C programming, or in any programming language, we have library which contains the keywords that are going to be used in the program, that are already defined, that is already defined in the libraries. We just need to import those libraries. We just have to include those libraries in our program. So let's start with this. The first, we need to define preprocessor directives. So now everybody should know what is preprocessor directive. It is hash, include, and the library name. I am going to give you one example also, how this is included, how we include such libraries in our program, right? Then we have global declarations. What are global declarations? Like suppose I want to use any variable, right? And that is used by different functions throughout the program. So the scope of the program is throughout the all the functions are going to use that variable, right? So I may be defining it as global declaration. Whereas when we have local declaration, the scope of local variables or local functions, it is within that scope only. Like if it is defined in any function, if we define anything, any variable in particular function, the scope becomes local to that function only. If I'm going to use the definition of that local variable outside the function, it is not going to understand that thing. So the scope, the declaration also, there are two types of declaration. The first is global, that is used throughout the program. The second is local declaration, that is used within that particular function, right? And after this, that is a statement. What is a statement? Statement is a single line, a piece of code that is written to perform the task, right? And most important, we have main function in the C programming language. Int main or void main, what is the role of this? The compiler first jumps into the main function, whatever is written in the main function, then only it is going to move to the other functions or other definition. So it is very much important, and you cannot use the uppercase for this, because I told you C is a case sensitive language. Why I told you about C is a case sensitive language? This is what I mean to say. Like if you type int, or if you are typing this main in caps, it is going to have some problems, right? So it is case sensitive. Like if I'm going to define a variable or in lowercase, and if I'm defining a in a uppercase, both have different meanings. The compiler does not understand. Now what is, how it is going to understand these keywords, like that are represented in a blue font, a blue color? They are keywords I have not defined. These are the defined keywords which are stored in directives. And what are directives? I told you it's a library where these keywords are already stored and they have their definition. Like int, int means integer. What is integer? Integer, that means you have some digit, you have some numbers. Void means null, nothing is there, it is void. It is same as that, but they are keywords. You cannot use main as your variable name. Why? Because it is a keyword, right? And in later chapters, we will be understanding about what is main function and how we are using this main function, where to define this main function, right? And how to define other functions also in a C program, right? So first of all, we need to understand what the first basic part of C program is: preprocessor directive, to include the libraries, to include the packages. The second, if you have macros or global declarations, you need to include here in the second structure, second part of the structure. The third part is main function, right? The main function will tell you about how and what are the things you are going to do in your program, right? So in main function, main is the basically heart, the core, or you may say the crucial part or the important part of any C program, right? Because directly the compiler is jumping into this function. It first of all, it identifies where is the main function, then only it is going to work. Otherwise it is not going to work, right? The next thing is you have other functions. Like I told you about, you if you want to add two numbers, I am making the function as sum function. So you can write other functions and you may be calling those functions within main only. You need to call, because I told you main is the core of the C program. You need to call those functions within the main function. Or you can do one thing, you can call one of the function, and within those function, within that one function, you can call other functions. But you again, the main thing is the one function you need to call in the main function, right? Let us move to the next part. Now let me tell you a simple example how we basically write a C program. A simple thing, like you should know, if I want to type everybody when we start, like A for apple, ऐसे ही like that only in C programming we have hello when we write any program, right? So first is hash include stdio.h. So let us understand one by one, and it's very easy. It's not complicated, but you need to know the syntax only. If you know the syntax, you can easily write a C program. You can write program in any language, right? Let me start with the first syntax, that is hash include stdio.h, right? Hash is a preprocessor directive to include the standard library, that is what do you mean by stdio? Stdio is standard input output dot header file. So header file is what? This header file is the library. It is included in the library. So these are the header files. Header files means, I told you, like you have subjects English, Hindi, maths in the library section. This also, there is one library that is named under, this is a package that is in the library named under standard input output, and under this we have multiple functions, right? Like printf, void, there are number of things, int, main, all are these function, all these keywords are defined under this library, right? Let us move to the next part. There is no global declaration here. After this, the first thing I have included is the header file. The second thing is, I told you, the heart of the C program, that is main function. So it is written as void main or int main, right? You can write it as void main also, and if the function is returning something, later on I am going to tell you what is return type, what is a function, how we define functions, what are the number of arguments, how to print a statement, how to scan the variables, everything we will be doing in later chapters, right? So the next thing is, I want to print, it is my first function, that is in C language, right? Printf hello world. So how to write down? Printf is again a function to print something, to print the message on the screen. And what is the message? That is enclosed by double quotes. And when we have a function, it should be started with some parenthesis, right? So printf is the function, starting parenthesis, double quotes, whatever string you want to enter, you may enter, slash n. Slash n is for new line, for creating a new line. So it's a new line character. Once you type slash n, the line will be printed and next line will be left. The next word will be starting with the next line, right? New line. And then you close that parenthesis, and it is very, very important to put the semicolon behind the line after the completion of the sentence. Why? Because it is the end of this particular line. If you don't end this, it will give you an error, right? So it is must, after completing your sentence, you need to type semicolon to end that particular line, right? And then we have return function. It is returning, there is no need of this also, and you may write it if the function is returning anything. So that's why you have taken it as int main. So in later chapter, when we are completing the topic about functions, it is more clear like why we are taking int main and why it is returning something, which value is to be returned, and why we have defined this return function. A function returns something, and what is that something? That is 0, right? And that is the next part is, you end the function, you enclose with its braces. So you starting braces and ending braces, and in between you have number of statements you want to print, you want to take the input, whatever you want to take it, you may write it within that particular function. This is how a function is to be written. Now you are just checking it out, there are double slash and there is something written, that is main. What is this? This is a comment. So a comment, whenever we want to define, whenever we want a comment. Now what is a comment? Let me tell you. Comment is a code that is not executed, that is not compiled by the compiler. It is just for my use. So I am writing this program for my knowledge. I am putting it as a comment this function, the working of this function, the basically the objective of this function is, or the name of the function is main. Another function, if I am taking it is and defining it as a comment and taking sum of two numbers, so I will be taking the double slash and writing sum of two numbers. So that is not executed, that is just for future reference. Suppose I am working in a company, and suppose I have made so many programs and I have given the comments also, and later in between I switch to another job, somebody else coming to my place, and now how he is going to understand that particular code that I have written? So these comments are very, very helpful for future references. Again, that new developer is going to read the program, how it is going to understand with the help of comments only. Like this line, the working of this line is, the meaning is under the comment. The second line, the meaning is this. So this is how we write the function and define the comments as well. Right? Let us move to the next part. Yes, so I'm going to give you a little glimpse of a C program, how we write and how we type in the compiler. First part, I told you hash include stdio, right? What is the stdio? That is standard input output, that basically stores the input and output functions within this header file, right? So my preprocessor directive would be hash include, these are the keywords. You cannot define these keywords as the variables, right? Next, again the heart of the C program, that is main function, right? Int main void. So you have written one function, you have given this braces, start brace and end brace. If you are giving, it is a scope of this function is starting brace and ending brace, right? What are the statements in this? You have given two statements, printf, you have given the message, this is my first C program, and then slash n. Again, there are different tab characters. I will be telling you what are tab characters, what is slash n, what is slash t, what is slash b. There are number of things, there are number of functions behind that. It is not, it is written for some meaning only, right? Again, at the end of the line, we should know that there should be semicolon. Then if the function is returning something, like it is written int main, so you have to write down return 0. 0 means the function is returning something, it is returning some value, right? That is 0. And then the end of the function, you have, if you have opened the braces, you have the closing braces also, right? And this is the scope of that particular function. Like if I have defined within this scope some variables, the scope of the variables gets over once I am ending the function with braces. It is the compiler, the other functions are not going to understand about those variables, right? So again I am repeating this part. The first thing for a C program, if you are going to write the C program, the first basic thing is to include the preprocessor directive, that is the header file. The next part is global declarations. If you have the global macros or you have global variables, you need to define in the second part. The third part is the core, the heart of the C program, that is main function. And because it is a case sensitive language, you need to follow some syntax, because there is the difference between uppercase character and lowercase character. It would be different for the compiler. If you are typing C in uppercase and if you are typing C in lowercase, it would be different in the memory because it has different ASCII values, right? And then you define that function, you write down whatever statements you want to write. Like in this particular function, that is main function, there are two statements written. First is the printf and the second is the return statement, and then you close that part, that particular brace, right? Yeah, so let us move to this. What does it do? Printf, let me tell you. On the output screen, right? I have written the program. Now I want to see the output. What is printed on the screen? Let us see that part also. Printf in double quotes, I told you, in double quotes, whatever you write down in double quotes, that is going to be printed to the screen only. So this is my first C program. This should be printed on the screen. This is the print message. So whatever you are going to write in the double quotes, that is printed on the screen, right? It prints the message. This print function is going to print something. And what is this something? That is defined in within the double quotes, right? And then we want to have a return statement to end the program, and then again I am saying semicolon is must. If you are not putting semicolon, it would get, the compiler would give you an error, right? So it must to write the semicolon to make the compiler know that this is the end of the line. Now the line ends, you are moving to the next line. Like after return 0, you are finding again semicolon. So this is the end of line. Now the compiler should move to the next statement, right? So this is how it is working, right? So let me revise the concepts. What is C? C is a procedural language. C is a structured language. C is case sensitive language. It was developed by Dennis Ritchie. Later languages will be C++ and Java. Nowadays, most of the people are using Python and R programming. But we should know the base. I told you, you cannot jump to the PhD level. You have to follow from the base. So C is the best language to understand the basics of any language. This is the advantage of C. Because if you are doing the graduation, if you are doing any engineering, or if you are doing any computer courses, you should know a single programming language. So the basic language you would start with, that is C language. Why? Because it is the base of other languages, right? If you know about data types, if you know about variables, there you just have to use them if you know the core behind that, right? So these are some basics of C programming language. And then in later part we have understood how to write, what is the structure of C program, what are libraries, what are preprocessor directive, what is main function does, it is required or it is optional. No, it is not optional, it is very much required for the compiler, right? After that, we have understood the print function that is used to print the statement on the screen, right? And the importance of semicolon, because if you don't write the semicolon at the end of line, the compiler is going to give you an error. So to end that particular line, we need to have a semicolon, right? After that, we have understood the scope of variables. If it is defined within some braces, it is the scope of that variable is within that braces only. And if it is a global declaration, then you need to define that particular variable outside the function, right? So these are some basics of C programming language. In later chapters, in later series, we will be learning about what are variables, what are print statement, like printf statement we have already understood, how to take the input from the user. This is a printing statement, this is an output statement, you are just printing something on the screen, right? What about the taking the input from the user? So there are some functions. And what about, like, if I am taking input as number, the syntax would be different. If I am taking a name of myself, that obviously the data type would be different. So these are some basic things I am going to tell you. From the base I am going to tell you, because the thing is, the students, those who are not having the programming background, they must know about each and everything. They want to understand what is this, what is that. So we will be doing, like, I have made this because I think you don't know anything about our programming language, right? And in later chapters, we will be learning about, like, how the editor is used, how the code of the program is compiled, what is the architecture of this, how it is saved, what is preprocessor directive, what are compiler, how it is going to compile the program, how it links with other packages, other objects throughout the program, or what are the code that are saved in libraries. So we will be talking about these things in the later series, right? Thank you.